As you're aware, we're very privileged to have Noel Whittaker on here today to talk to us about a range of retiree issues, all of which are fascinating, but also to touch on the main purpose of our meeting about this Labor policy on imputation credits. A lot of you know Noel by reputation. Noel writes weekly columns in major newspapers in every state in Australia, including the Brisbane Courier Mail, the Sunday Mail, the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age, and he also broadcasts regularly on ABC Radio and appears on Channel 9. Noel's written 22 best-selling books that have sold over 2 million copies around the world, and his book, Making Money Made Simple, set sales records across the country and was recently named in the top 100 of the most influential books in the last century. He was co-founder of Whittaker McNaught, one of Queensland's largest financial planning companies, with funds under advice in excess of $2 billion. He relinquished all interest in that business in 2007. At the right time.
Thank God, mate.
In 2011, he was made a member of the Order of Australia for his services to the Australian financial planning industry. Earlier this year, Noel accepted a position as independent director of VGI Global Limited, which is listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. He's also executive producer of the film Think and Grow Rich, The Legacy, which premiered in Los Angeles last October. Noel is a chartered tax advisor, a member of the Australian Securities and Investment Commission Regional Liaison Committee, and is executive in residence and adjunct professor with the Faculty of Business at the Queensland University of Technology. We couldn't have anybody better qualified to talk to us this morning.
Thank you, guys. It's great to be here. So what I'm trying to paint a picture here is that as we get older and there's more pressure, there'll be more pressure to take away benefits. That makes sense? And there's no other option. So, Labor attack on franking. I think Rob took you through it previously. It's based on false assumptions. I have spoken to Bowen's office. I've told them that, and they reckon I'm offensive. So there you are. All right. It's based on the assumption it's going to raise 60 billion. I reckon it's going to raise nothing. All right, because the whole of Labor's attack on franking credits is based on parliamentary budget estimates that are 3 years old. Now, the laws for self-funded retirees changed totally on June 30th last year, didn't it? And I won't know what's going to happen to me until I get my books done, which will probably be November by the time all the paperwork arrives, right? But I used to get 54,000 back in franking credits. I reckon I'll get none, okay? Who knows? Anyway, so, and I've been pushing it, and eventually the Oz picked it up. Right? So, that is a bit complex, but that is a $10 million portfolio in super, and it's split at 35% Aussie shares. Now, they're the only ones that carry franking credit. Can you see that? Cash 20%, local shares 35%, international 25%, listed property. That's a fairly standard asset allocation. The income of that is $390,000. The franking credits are $48,000. Now, because you can only have 3.2 now in pension mode, there's about $7 million in accumulation, you with me? Being taxed at 15%, and $3 million at 0. So you've got to add the franking credits to your income, take off the tax-free, and basically there's $45,000 tax to pay now. Before last June, you would have got $48,000 back. The $10 million portfolio will now get tax of $45,000 and get $2,000 back. So what the changes last June did was basically take all the money that Bowen thinks he's going to get, all right? Well, I wrote in the paper, I'm sorry, Bill, Malcolm beat you to it. Okay, now, so, but you get round it very easily. Roll your fund to industry or retail fund. That's all you got to do, because they can use the franking credits. So there's no money there. Now, if you're like me, you've got stuff in your self-managed fund like property syndicates, which you don't want to lose. You simply cash in your Aussie shares component and roll it to a retail fund. Then select the Aussie shares option in the retail or industry fund, problem solved. No money again, is there? Are you with me? So, now let's go back to Labor's proposal. This is a very significant headline when $1 million is worth less than $500,000. The Labor proposals will change, the mentality should be from all parties to encourage people to be self-funded off the public purse. Do we agree with that? That's what we all want, isn't it? Okay, so there are pension traps, which I want to cover first. The single assets test 561,250 and the couple is 844. So if you go over those limits, your pension is off, okay? And $100,000 of assets is about $8,000 a year of age pension, all right? So I just want you to note those numbers carefully. So let's look at the Wilsons. I've got 3 scenarios. They're exactly the same except for the shares they own. All these people have an $800,000 residence there. They've all got $75,000 in the bank. They've all got $45,000 of car and furniture stuff, all right? That doesn't change. But the Wilsons have $200,000 of shares, right? They get the full pension, are you with me? Right? Plus 12.8, including franking credits, they get close to $50,000 a year, okay? Now, next couple, same scenario, except their shares are worth $710,000. They get 46. How about that? Their pension drops to 500, they get 46. How about that? Next couple, their shares are $800,000. Pension zero, they get $51,000. See the difference? The person on the full pension is better off. So now, under Labor, the first couple, under Labor, that's the last couple, their pension goes to zero. Now Labor's promised not to affect pensioners. So everybody now is going to want to be a pensioner, aren't they? These people have $800,000 of shares. Their income has just dropped by $14,000. So what are they going to do? What are you going to do? Go on a cruise and the renovations, maybe give 10 grand to your kids, 12,000 into a funeral bond. Voila, they're back to this. So what it does is it changes the focus from being self-funded independent to being on the public purse just to get the franking credits. That's pretty serious, isn't it? So now, Widow Brown. Remember the asset cut-off points? Widow Brown will suddenly, when he pops off, and they leave their assets to each other, which I hope you guys are not doing, all right? Because for this reason, if you're not on the age pension, it's different, all right? If you're on the age pension, she now is over the cut-off point with 700 with assets like this. Pension goes to zero, all right? But she still gets 45 with the franking credits. Under Labor, she loses the pension, the franking credits, and the husband goes back to 32. And I wrote in the paper, it's not a tax on the wealthy, it's a tax on the widows. That's what Bowen found offensive. So as I said, it's a challenging, changing world. Keep your guard up. Thank you.